Chris, I want to thank you for coming, for sitting down and talking with us for a little bit.
You're welcome.
All right, cool. So basically what I want to just talk about a little bit is for students maybe that are looking to maybe get into photography. By the way, we should probably say Chris Jones is a professional photographer. And he's here to just kind of give students that maybe are looking to get into photography maybe some quick tips and tricks to kind of get into it. So with that said, let's just talk a little bit about, okay, so let's just say someone is looking, they've been shooting on their phone and they're ready to upgrade and buy their first camera. What's a good entry-level camera that they might want to look at?
I bumped it. Well, I started with an entry-level DSLR. So you're basically just going to want either a Canon, Nikon, Sony, something with interchangeable lenses, because that's going to give you the capability to like shoot in manual settings, which is the next step from shooting with a phone and kind of
like a
point and shoot. So that's going to give you the next step of something that you would need for, if you were doing college courses or something like that, to actually learn how to use manual settings in a camera. That's something they'd require.
Okay, yeah. So as far as manual settings, what's a good outlet for people or for someone to go and learn about different manual settings? Like, where did you learn it in high school? How did you learn? Just by practice, or did you take a class?
In high school, I took a lot of photography classes, and we shot with film. So when you're shooting with film, you're forced to use the manual settings because there's no automatic in film. So that's when I learned. And then a lot of people, if they're not doing that in high school, they're learning in college. If they're taking that track and doing an art school thing and learning the manual settings that way in a classroom setting. You're going to want to start by buying a DSLR, or I guess a lot of people would buy a mirrorless camera now, which is basically the same thing, just more
Things have
modern
changed,
technology.
yeah,
So you're still getting interchangeable lenses with manual settings. And learning to use them is one, playing with it and kind of exploring what each thing does. And then if you're going to a classroom setting and doing it in a classroom setting, which is how I did it. Otherwise, the internet, just Google it.
Yeah.
Google it away.
The internet's amazing.
The internet's amazing.
So what were some of the things that you were shooting in high school? What were you shooting?
Typical high school things, like stuff in the yard and
but that's good. Like
landscape and flowers and bugs, whatever. Just whatever you could find. It's an interesting place. You just go and start shooting the leaves on a tree and whatever.
Just mess with the settings.
You're just messing with settings and trying to make something look cool. You saw something on the internet and you're like, oh, I want to do that. And you go there and you're like, oh, wait, I don't know how to do that. And you just figure it out. And that's kind of, a good way to learn too.
In high school, were you messing with any kind of editing software?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I had Photoshop already.
You had Photoshop already?
School, yeah.
No Lightroom?
No, actually, I didn't use Lightroom until I was out of college primarily.
Would you prefer one, or would you suggest one over the other to a high school student?
That's tough. To a high school student, I would recommend Photoshop, because you're mostly working on individual projects. Like your goal in a high school class or a college course is to create one image for a specific project. So in that case, you're using Photoshop because you can go in more in detail inside of that software versus Lightroom, which would be more of a batch editing process.
Okay, gotcha. That seems like that's a good starting point. Do you just use natural light, or did you have a flash on your camera, an external flash? Or?
No, I didn't have a flash until after college either. So it was all natural light stuff. In a college course, you have some equipment you could rent and borrow. But for the most part, you're just shooting natural light because you're still just learning how to use the camera.
Yeah. Awesome.
Once you can shoot in natural light, adding a flash or adding any type of external light becomes a lot easier because you know how to balance it with the natural light.
So getting the basics down first.
Get the basics down.
Yeah.
If you can shoot natural light, you can figure out the rest.
Awesome.
Because you're going to have to know your settings to do that.
For sure. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Log into Photoshop and
get shooting.
Get shooting.
Get shooting. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. Ooh, I got to reach over everything.
Cut.
Bye.